welcome to Swim Chats, a podcast about swimming. I'm Shona Riddell, a writer, former journalist and swimmer from Wellington, Aotearoa, New Zealand. For each episode, I talk to a different guest from our swim community. Please hit the follow button so you don't miss an episode. You can also leave a 5-star rating, which helps other people to discover the podcast. And if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend or two. To support the podcast, you can also become a swim buddy for $5 a month on Patreon. Swim buddies get advance notice of upcoming guests and a few other perks. To find out more, go to patreon.com/swimchats. There's a link to it in the episode show notes. And this month we welcome 3 new swim buddies, Diane, Sinead and Richard. Right, let's get started with today's episode. It's a pleasure today to talk to Dan Abel, owner of the swim business Fit Abel, A-B-E-L, in the South Island. Dan, welcome to Swim Chats.
Thank you for having me. It's good to be here.
So for those listening who aren't familiar with Fit Abel, can you tell us a bit about what it is and what you do?
We are a swimming company. If you think of anything to do with swimming, we really do it. We're a consultancy more than anyone. So if someone comes to us with questions, we're happy to assist and help. We are primarily swim coaches. That's our foundation, our baseline. But my unique journey has really identified key aspects of swimming that I think you and I are going to relate to: the health and wellness, accessibility of water, and encouraging people to get in there, being safe. And I think they're all really important topics, particularly in New Zealand. New Zealand's a unique space, as I'll highlight to you as we go through this talk. But yeah, we want to support groups who want to encourage swimming, and through our own organisation, Fit Abel, we want to help people be introduced to water, to swim competently, and then gain the benefits that water provides to us in our life.
Cool. I really like that term, swim consultancy, that you mentioned. It's very there's something very open-minded about it, and it treats people as individuals, right? Because from my experience, everybody needs something slightly different when it comes to swimming, or they're coming at it from a different background, location. I mean, there are so many variables in swimming.
Yeah, well, when one of our foundations is when a client comes to us, what do they actually want in their swimming? And in simple terms, it begins with a conversation. You see in the background now, we've got a beautiful little facility here. We're very privileged to have this, but it's a private space. And we don't it's called our Real Swim Centre, but we also in-house call it our counselling centre. And funnily enough, we recognise that when a client comes in, funnily enough, one of the key aspects of our interaction is communication. And one of the biggest barriers is actually the water. You know, stating the obvious, when you put your head in it, you can't hear us. And when you get in it, you want to swim. So we really prioritise having a conversation, particularly with new clients, before we get in the water. And, you know, someone will come to us, we want to train for Challenge Wanaka. That's their stated goal. But in a 5-minute conversation, you can quite often find, actually, I've been through a divorce. I'm not feeling happy about my weight or my health, and I've got a sore knee, so I can't run anymore. That's actually why I'm here. And am I really interested in the technical aspects of swimming? Not so much. I want to be able to do it competently, but I really want to enjoy the process, and I want to be able to do it competently. Okay, let's deliver that to a person. And on the flip side, we get people who come through who want to know, you know, swimming intricately. Okay. But I think it's really important to help deliver to people what they want, and also help them figure out what they want. That's part of what we do, and then getting other people to be aware of that as well. Other organisations we've had, you know, I love. I was just looking through your podcast. I see you've got Grant Nolder there, and I made a note to listen to Grant once. The interaction he has with swimmers, I think, is special. I haven't seen it done as well up and down the country. And perhaps we can talk more about that because we've had some involvement there. But I think that's really important. We try and have interactions not just with swimmers, but with any organisation that comes to us and talks to us about swimming.
Yeah. I'll mention for anybody who hasn't listened to the Grant Nalder interview, he's the Wellington Harbour Master. I can link to it in the show notes. He's really good at listening to swimmers and thinking about what they need and making sure that there are sort of safety policies in operation. Like we swim with tow floats if we're going past 200 metres offshore, which I know is unusual, that we have a council bylaw for that. Yeah, so that's just one example. So yeah, with Fit Abel, I'm always interested with people who run their own swim businesses. How do you grow it? And how did it start? Like, did you see a gap in the market and do you grow it through word of mouth? Do you advertise?
We're not talking about a gap in the market. A lot of, I think, small businesses, particularly, and yourself, a rider, it's built on passion. And I can think of a lot of swim activities in New Zealand and around the world, and there's no business model there at all. And it's if you want to make money in swimming, open a learn to swim business for kids. That's where the money is. Anything else, there's usually underlying motivations. And for me, it was the realization of helping others, and that just through my enjoyment and my swim background, I have a unique set of skill sets that enables me to help others through swimming, and it makes me feel good. The business side of it is still an equation we haven't really answered in New Zealand, and I'll come to that. But my journey is unique, and I'll start where we are now. We're on a little lifestyle block here, and we are starting lambing soon around bees. And we have got a rare North Canterbury skink here. We're really starting to understand nature, not from reading it, but experiencing it. And my research in agriculture has been very interesting. People who've grown up thinking this is the way it must be, versus us who've come into a little lifestyle block and are just out there watching the animals roam. And a good example is the sheep. My father-in-law's a farmer. He plant ryegrass. So I planted ryegrass and I let them into the ryegrass, and they walked straight past it into the weeds and started grazing and selectively eating whatever they wanted. And he was fascinated, and so was I. And so we weren't shaped by any kind of experience. Now, that's my agriculture experience, and my swimming experience is very similar. I was actually in the Air Force as a navigator for almost 10 years. We have great pools on base, and I've always been involved in swimming. And for a lot of swimmers, I think people relate to this. When you go traveling around the world, you'll go find swimming pools or swimming spots, and I'd do that, and I'd help people, and I just enjoyed it. But I was in the Air Force. Now, I took leave at a point in my career where it was either committing to a Defence Force career or looking at other things. And I traveled through America and visited college mates because I swam over there. I went into Europe, and then I ended up in London. And I went for a rock climbing lesson, and the rock climbing instructor said, let's get to know each other before you do your rock climbing. I'm a rock climber who's going to do an English Channel relay. Oh, and his name's Jack, and his photo is actually on the wall here behind me. Hi, Jack. I'm Dan, and I'm a swimmer who wants to learn to rock climb. He said, oh, can you help us with the English Channel relay? So I helped them with the English Channel relay, and their fourth swimmer pulled out. So I ended up becoming a coach swimmer. And these guys, they won't mind me saying, they weren't very good, Jonah. And Jack in particular didn't put the work in. He didn't do any night swimming, and he missed a lot of the team training. And so that really showed me from the relay perspective, you're only as good as the person who's doing the least amount of work in your team. So we need to encourage them. But I loved the experience. It was my first real amateur experience. And I read a book, Lynn Cox's Swimming to Antarctica, before I did this. And for those who haven't read it, I highly recommend it. In it, she talks about the swim pilots. If they don't think you're going okay, they might offer you a discount just to turn around. Lynn talked about that. And funnily enough, I'm in with these rock climbers who are almost going backwards at one point because it was very rough driving rain. And he offered us a discount to turn around. And I said to the guys, hey, if we want to pull the pin now, it's half price. They said, if it's a safety issue, we'll stop. If it's not, then we'll carry on. And these guys were tenacious, just absolutely committed, and I loved it. And for them, it was like an Olympic swim. I just loved the experience. And then once I helped them, a whole lot of people in London started to come and ask me for help. And then I found a swim holiday company called SwimTrek and Simon Murray, who were very accommodating. I started guiding swim holidays for them with my unique skill set. Bearing in mind, I'm still on leave for the Air Force here. And then I found adults turning up for their swim holidays that weren't, I didn't think, wholly prepared and could have got more out of their swim holiday if they were. So I said to Simon, why don't we set up an adult program? Now, what I found in London, what was similar to what we have here in New Zealand, in that adults are really, adult coaching, adult help is an add-on to programs, a tack on. There's a sign, if you need it, just contact us. And I said to Simon Mary, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to be on poolside 7 days a week, rain, hail or shine, there to talk to people and encourage them through it. And this program had a few adults come through doing lessons a week. By the end of it, I did a decade of this over there. I was booked up a few months in advance, and rain, hail or shine, our swimmers were in the pool. What we found was if they didn't have that commitment with the coach, if it was raining or whatever, they often wouldn't go there. But I loved the experience, and I ended up going into the High Commission in London and resigning for the Air Force and saying, this is what I want to do. And it was crazy because you asked me about a business plan. I didn't have one. I just loved what I was doing. I didn't have the formal background of coming through a swim program and coaching in that regard. I drew a lot on my own swim experience and on my military experience. They were really helpful. But then I committed to the program in London. I had some really good mentors. Simon Murray is a fantastic operator, and I love what he's done with SwimTrek, biggest swim holiday operator in the world. Brett Naylor was one down here, and a really good example. I said, Brett, swim coaching, I want to develop, expand my knowledge. And he has 6 books. He gave me a pile of books, and he goes, you can read them, but the best thing is you know your stuff. Get out there and just get experience. And I had the conversation the other day, where I'm at right now, I couldn't be at here in New Zealand. I'm here because I did 10 years in London at an outdoor, unheated pool, and I did everything from video analysis on someone who wanted to swim as a mermaid with a mermaid suit, people who forgot their bathers and swam in their underwear, cultural, ethnicity, disability, all inclusive in a naturally heated swimming pool, day in and day out for almost a decade. Then, and I'm giving you the short answer, Shona. So, yeah. Then in 2011, I was back here on holiday, and I was in the Port Hills, and I was in the earthquakes. And that changed everything for me. It was a very tough next 12 months. And even years later, didn't realize how much it did. But I thought that was it. I was up above the cliffs that fell down. It was bad, but I knew that I was involved in something that could help people swimming. And I was like, hey, I'm doing this really cool thing in London, but my heart's in New Zealand. Let's start bringing it home. And naive Dan, let's just bring it home to New Zealand. Yay, there's this really cool thing. It's embraced in London. I'll bring it back here. And to be honest, have we achieved what we achieved in London? I don't think so. When I come back to New Zealand, it was really interesting. The first answer I'd get is usually a no, and the second one was a no, and often the third one was a no about access, about restrictions, about rules, and we've got water quality. And what I found was it's very difficult for an adult, and let's be honest, most kids go through a swim program don't end up being a competent swimmer. The majority, the data's there. So adults are the number one group with the lowest swim competency, with the lowest accessibility to pools and open water opportunities. How do we get our clients? We train them. We take someone, we fill them with aspirations, and we build trust with them, and we get them in the water. We give them a simple recipe. We make it fun. We help them meet people, and we give them opportunity. We create our own clients. And that's what we've been doing for the last almost 15 years now here. As far as a business model goes, I would tell any listener now, don't follow us for a business model. We're absolutely bonkers. We just love what we do.
Well, it's very exciting to follow along with what you do because you do such a variety of things. And I love what you say about building trust. It's obviously so important, especially for people who aren't confident getting into a pool, but also B, getting into open water, because I know you do a lot of that, and we can talk about that too. And also operating in the South Island, you have, relatively speaking, colder temperatures for somebody, for example, who might swim in Auckland. But I know you draw a lot of people to your swim holidays, which we can talk about. They're called Real Swim Adventures over the summer months. And some of them, like the Fiordland one, I'm keen to talk about in particular, because I know that one seems to sell out more than a year in advance, and you often have a waiting list for that. If you're keen to talk about your swim holidays, I imagine the SwimTrek job that you had was a good grounding for that experience of taking people to a new location and guiding them through something that might be a little bit out of their comfort zones.
Our definition of learn to swim is being able to take an adult to Lake Tekapo down south in August and chuck them in the water and they can function. We have two aspects of our swim coaching: swim skills, you can learn in a pool, and environmental confidence. And from a health and wellness, our water safety, all those aspects, environmental confidence is the essential one. If your program doesn't include an outdoor swim opportunity, then it's not a complete package, in our opinion. So that's why I've had everything from a rugby club president, 65 years old, and the deep end here hanging on to me with fear. But then we want to build that up, and you've got to build in your program, there's got to be an environmental confidence aspect to it. Now, I'm going to try, I think there was a few questions in there, and I also want to put perspective on it. And it's also tricky to capture all of the components in our podcast here without, drilling out to 3 hours. But Maslow's hierarchy of needs, for those of us old enough, I don't know if they still teach it, but for those, Maslow's hierarchy is kind of like a pyramid, right? And at the top, Maslow called it self-actualization, where it's basically you've got all the basics that you need. You've got your food, water, shelter. Then everything else that you imagine in your life now on top of that, and basically you could call it fulfillment. So you talked about real swimming, put it over Maslow's, and we have a diagram of that. Real swimming's at the top. For us, that's your ultimate. So at the bottom, you can swim. You've got some basic swim skills. You've got some competency. Then you go to open water. You've got that environmental confidence. You've got the ability to operate in a dynamic environment. That's at the base for us. Then you start going to new open water locations. You meet people. You connect with nature. You have these experiences of all of that. That, for us, that's what real swimming is. It's not a swim holiday. We recognize that connecting with nature, people, the ability to socialize, good food, the exercise, all contributes to your health and wellness, to your experience. That's what we're trying to deliver. Now, we wanted it, Simon Mary SwimTrek model. The idea was to have lots of swim holidays in New Zealand, and we've been to a number of different locations. We were in the Cook Islands for about 6 years. We're about to launch into Tonga, and then COVID hit. And the lesson we took from there was, you know what? Our backyard is a really good place to operate, and there's much less risk. And from a travel carbon footprint, let's just stay on the South Island, all this water here. You have mentioned a couple of times already cold water, and this is a really important aspect for me that I learned in London. Back in the day, just so people realize, pools weren't covered, stating the obvious. Then, and I had a great master swim experience in the UK where I was on the bus with a master swimmer, and this blew my mind. He said, yeah, we covered swimming pools. He goes, but once they were first covered, we didn't even heat them. They were just covered. So the first indoor swimming pools were about 20 degrees. What? Then we started heating them, 26. Now we've arrived at this point where we're immersing our kids in an environment that is so removed from the natural environment that there's no relationship whatsoever. It's got high energy costs, high chemical, and sure, they learn swim skills in there, but it removes a lot of the benefits that we used to get from swimming. I would teach an adult in London who had no swim experience in 15-degree water, and they get in their board shorts, Sure, they might turn a little blue, but they still had some dexterity. They were still conversational. Were they uncomfortable? Yes. Is that a bad thing? No. Actually, we know it's healthy to be uncomfortable. Then I'll teach them to swim, and they didn't know any different. So what was fascinating for me, that became their normal. And I could then take that swimmer who just went anywhere and they had ultimate environmental confidence. Now, I'd have someone who was at a Virgin Active Health Club swimmer triathlete who swam at an indoor pool, and they'd come to me for some open water training. They'd get in the 15-degree water and freak out. So we try and not use the word cold at all. And I've had this discussion right up to government policy level because they talk about cold water. I was like, well, define that. I've had an Irish female get hypothermia in the Cook Islands. So you tell me, and the water's 25 degrees. Your people having a cold experience, a hot, it's relevant, and you need to have a process to judge it. But what we found, if you say the word cold, people can just turn blue before they even get in it. So we tell people, our coaching program, something we actively do to every client when they look at the water, our mind wants a descriptor. So we get them to call it wet. It gives your mind an answer, and it's utterly neutral. Rough water, blue water, clear water, cloudy water, warmer or cooler water is all wet, and it gives your mind an answer. And what people, I think, need to appreciate is the more exposure you have to that wet water in your environment, you'll get used to it, right? So someone from down south goes up north, the water feels warmer. From north goes down south, it feels cooler. Now, Fiordland came about from COVID, and New Zealand has a fascination with cold water. And I had my experience overseas coming back to my farming, but I wasn't shaped by the conversation that's in New Zealand, cold water. So we went to Fiordland and people said, you're nuts. And what we found was adults were having so much fun with socializing, having food. They were like kids. We would have to go, hey, Shona, you're turning a little blue. Probably a good time for you to get out now. Hey, let's get a blanket around you and get a cup into you, and you can just have a rest for a few hours, and then we'll get you back in. Hey? But the sense of that inner child that's still with everyone would come out there. And we try and pick unique locations. We did Nelson Lakes for quite a while, which we still love, but we kind of got a bit pushed out there with the Tiaroa walkers that came through. Got so busy with that. So we don't go there. We do a lot on the West Coast now, and we go down there. But we recognise now we want to, and it's very tricky to balance. I've got to spend dedicated time to new people, getting them with swim skills. Then we've got to have a program in the middle, and then our real swim, we want to have some where we go away and experience that real swimming. We're not one of anything, we're everything in all of those and everything in between. And we want to spend time helping other organizations get there. And I've worked on numerous projects in the last 15 years to try and not just get us getting people going through that, but up and down the country, building consistency. And I think you talked about the real swimming being popular. If we're a business model, we just put more on and more on and more on. And we'd bring in staff who maybe didn't have the same level of quality. What we did after COVID, we're going to be a small team that's passionate, and we're going to deliver some. But I think it's important, for a lot of things these days, we're really used to, and you're going to hear my holistic look now. For example, what our lifestyle block has taught us is vegetables and fruit is seasonal, and there's nothing wrong with eating seasonal. Real swimming is somewhat seasonal and limited availability. Instead of doing heaps of them, when you do it, be present, enjoy it, savor it. One of my concerning thing, and so I've done some longer swims, right? You'll see on my resume, but not heaps. And one of the classic I'll see for people is that you do a long swim and people come to you without thinking and go, oh, what's next? What's next? And I train our clients now to say, when people say that to you, what's next is I'm going to spend the rest of my life regaling you with experiences from my last swim. That's what's next. No, we're so busy in this, we're looking for the next thing. Savor it, enjoy it. And I think you're like Shona, I do it to myself, and it started with my Cook Straight swims. It was 2013, where people asked me afterwards what's next. And I really had to think about, I can remember getting in 15-degree water clarity, seeing the kelp swish around and the movement of the water. I remember the little eggs, in the water you're swimming through. And I tell people now, that's the last chapter of a book. You're getting ready for a swim. All of the journey and your training and preparation, you should be writing chapters because you're having experiences and meeting people. The swim, whatever you're training for, is the last chapter, but there's all these chapters coming up, and you want to be able to, when you're out there, don't just go, I need to get the finish line. Savor it, enjoy it. Remember the moments of self-doubt. Will I make it? Will I not? I was in tears at this point. I was joyous at this point. Why? And then when people say, what's next? Well, let me tell you about this journey that we've had. And the cool thing for me is I'm part now of all these books for people, and I help to contribute to their chapters. And it's just a brilliant journey to be part of.
Oh my goodness. As a writer, I love the book analogy in the chapters. And just everything you've said about, first of all, as a language person, the words we use with ourselves are so vital, right? They're so powerful. And so eliminating the word cold and using wet, I'm going to try that. Yeah. And also the importance of connecting with nature. I really sort of relate to what you've said. Like for me, I'm not big on sort of racing people or, it's more about being in different locations and having different experiences with different people. And just being in the moment as well. I think when you're swimming, a lot of people will relate to what you said about, remembering the details of the swim, not necessarily the distance, although of course that's significant, especially if it's a quick straight swim. That's incredible. But not focusing on okay, what's next? I've ticked that off. What's next? Because you're right, that can just lead to dissatisfaction, and there'll always be something more. And I especially appreciate as a Wellingtonian that you mentioned swimming in the giant kelp, because that is a big part of our harbour and our marine reserve off the south coast. Yeah. So I'm just recapping the highlights of what I found from what you said. I think that was everything. Yeah. So I definitely won't ask you what's next.
There's a couple of Kiwiisms, and you'll find them more around the world. What's next is a classic, and the other one we find in an adult population, and you can play this in it as a game. Go out in the general population and say, "Can you swim?" And males, we tend to be predominant in this, but you'll find it general across the sexes. Kiwis, I can swim to save myself. It's a classic line we take with people we interact with. And I say, brilliant. I'll take you 5K offshore. I'll throw you out of the boat and you show me swimming to save yourself. And they're like, And I say, what you mean is you think you could fall in and you could get back to shore. So I love you as a writer. I've written in my mind many books out swimming, many interactions, and it's on my list. And one of the reasons I was excited to come on your podcast is I get to talk to an actual published writer, which is very exciting, and it motivates me because it's on my list. A genuine what's next is to write a book, and there's a lot of swim help books out there, but for me, I want to weave it into that holistic tale. And you talked about words. What's fundamental, I think, unique about our coaching program is that over the years, London in particular, we talk about kids, but we see the kids' traits in adults. So an adult will do in a swim lesson what I tell them to do. So what we've learned is we better find the words that most often give us the outcome that we actually want. It's not always the word we think is effective. Our program is very specific, and when I'm coaching a client, I will always check, because quite often what we do is someone will communicate and we will superimpose words that we like, and I'll start to check because, for example, in our body position, we use head neutral, or we tell people in the water to look for dolphins. two reasons. Looking for dolphins. The dolphins tend to be swimming below us, but also it's a fun thing. It gets us to relax. Quite often a client will superimpose that and say, oh, you're telling me to put my head down. We're not, because they're often, for them, they start putting their head down. We're not asking them to do it. We actually want your head neutral. And we found that getting people to look for dolphins gets their head neutral most often. So the words around what we use, and writing, swimming, everything we do in life, probably the most challenging and the thing that brings the most issues is communication. So our foundation of our program, we've really focused on effective communication, how we do it. One, unique, is removing people from the water. We get people, I'm ready to, I'm go get changed. Well, you're going to sit on the couch to start with, because the water actually is a negative impact on our effective communication. We're going to build some bridges before we even get you in the water.
Which I think will blow people's minds, right? The idea of learning to swim and not being in the water. But yeah, it can also be very powerful.
We take the approach that every swimmer we work with, we train to be an assistant coach. And their number one client is going to be themselves. And the value for our lessons, because it's very tricky, we work one-on-one. And everyone relate to this. Insurance costs, rates rises, electricity. We're horrified the price to deliver a one-to-one. But at the same time, we argue it's probably one of the best value around, because in our opinion, what we're doing is giving people a refined practice framework, an instruction book, and we're giving them that first basic step in coaching. And their client is themselves. They can take this lesson and go away and practice it effectively 12 times. So for the price of one lesson, they're getting those 12 other swims. And if they implement it, we see the change straight away. So they're effectively, we want to empower them, not to be reliant on us. We always say it's sad when we're effective and successful, we don't see them as much anymore, because they've got the information, they've got the ability to go away and critique their own swimming.
And be their own coach. Yeah.
We don't come and just do what we tell you to do. We encourage all our clients to ask us why. And I'd encourage anyone in any swim program, it's like trying on a set of goggles in a store. If they don't let you try on your goggles, don't buy them. And if we can't explain to you effectively why we want you to do something, then I'd say don't do it. We should be able to explain to you.
Yeah. And the importance of those one-on-ones is also treating people as individuals, right? Because as you said, they could have a fear of open water, they could be overcoming some sort of injury, have some issue with their technique that they don't even know they have.
Totally, Shona. So I did a webinar for Scott Wilson Swim People, fantastic organisation. He runs a one-man band, but bringing our coaching community together. And we talked about adults, and adults, in my opinion, are unique in that we are growing kids, but I say that we are collectors, and adults have collected injuries, psychological baggage, learning traits, and the last thing we want to see is adults, when they're starting out, put in a group environment right at the beginning of the journey, because it really needs to be tailored to that person. And I wouldn't want to put a figure on it, but certainly maybe 50% of the people we work with have had a bad experience as a kid, and we really need to get them through that. And they'll learn at different rates. Everyone can get there, but their journey as an adult, I think, I call kids blank canvases. You can have a program and deliver fairly consistent standards, and kids in general will move through it. For adults, we really need to tailor it to the broken leg that they've had, the shoulder injury, the surfer that went over them and held them under when they were a kid. All of those need to be factored in. And the other thing is, as we get older, swimmers, if you've been a swimmer and you're listening to this podcast, you may not appreciate it, but the majority of the population are so body conscious. And one of the things we're doing is providing a safe space for them to get used to taking their clothes off. It is horrific out there in society how we compare, and we're very uncomfortable with our bodies. I love swimmers. Wellington's got a great culture, I think, and I am imagining, you're down there on the waterfront, towel change, off you go in your togs and you're away. And what I loved in London's an extreme, right? And, we have multi-millionaires, we have artists, we have blue collar, white collar, and they come into the pool and we have tall, short, big, small. You take your clothes off, all of your uniform of daily life is gone, all of your protection of clothes is gone. But in our swim environment, everyone is so accepting and encouraging, and you feel comfortable with your body. And it's, for us, it's one of our barriers is finding out where people are going to practice their swimming and getting them comfortable with what they need to do in the practice, and in actually getting them comfortable in a swimsuit. It's a very important part of the start of the journey. And it's what I love about what we all do, providing our swim opportunities. And I think that adds, it's just a segment, but a really important segment of the health and wellness component of what swimming does for us.
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up actually, because it's something that has come up a lot during this podcast, and something I noticed myself because I only started swimming, it was less than 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And that is something that you notice, that, you go to the pool, you go to the beach, and you're wearing togs and not much else. And so for the first time, you're really getting used to just sort of putting yourself out there, and you see other people putting themselves out there, and it is quite liberating. But it is a process that you go through, especially if you're attending events and things where you're being photographed or videoed. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're really passionate about outdoor swim spaces now and being comfortable. And just being honest, in London, I would be coaching and look over at people getting trained, and I saw more bits and bobs of people than I wanted to see, and not in a bad way, And it was, people were just so comfortable, and this was a safe space. And that's what we really want to encourage, just people being comfortable with who they are. And I want to just tie into that, because again, when I came back to New Zealand, access for us, and we really tied in with water safety. We thought water safety was a big aspect. And I'll come back to Grant and Alder in a second, because you talked about it, but I want to talk about our water safety journey, because we've actually moved away from it now. Our big focus is the health and wellness. And, why I'm going to go for a swim today. Why are you going swimming? Water safety? That motivates maybe a parent who's thinking about their kid, or maybe someone's had it, but it is only a small percentage. But if you say to someone, I want to get fit, look good, I want to feel good about myself, I want to lose weight, I'm going to go for health and wellness. Yeah, I'll go for health and wellness. And funnily enough, if you go for health and wellness, you learn to swim, you become competent, water safety is not even an issue. So our model now is to promote exercise, engagement, socialization, competency, swim skills. And if you do that, water safety is a non-issue. Yeah, but if you really focus on water safety, one of our concerns about how the message is broadcast in New Zealand, it creates fear rather than respect. And we think everyone should respect the water, no one should fear it. And what I don't want as a swim deliverer is someone ending up in a body of water with fear in their mind, which triggers panic straight away. And that's an issue for us in most of those occasions. But if you focus on health and wellness and actually doing it through a fun model, the water safety takes care of itself.
Right, so it becomes a byproduct.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a message we want to put out. And again, it's one of the reasons I'm really happy to get on podcasts and talk about what we do, because I think it's a slightly different message to what you hear mainstream in New Zealand in particular.
Yeah, that's a really interesting way of looking at it. And I was going to ask, you've been a swimmer all your life by the sounds of it. Like a lot of people, they start late like I did, or they have a very long break and they come back to it. You've obviously got a lot of sort of discipline in your life. You were in the Air Force, you mentioned, and you're passionate about it. And also swimming is your business, so you're sort of living and breathing swimming all the time. Do you swim to relax? Like in your spare time, would you go off and have a swim by yourself?
Swimming really helps me mentally, and I love it. But because it's a passion and not a business model, swimming and my advocacy for it has affected my own health and wellness. And I think it's really important to speak honestly. There's been some struggles and still are some struggles for us. And we're very small in New Zealand. We're a very small business. At the moment, I spend a lot of time in the hills. I will go, I know I need a switch off. I need something different. One of my problems now is when I go out and organise swim, how's it organised? What are the events do? Well, are they wearing toe floats? What's the competency here? And there's a lot of voices going in my head. I can find some safe spaces to swim. I love to swim. It's good for my body. I need it. But it's like anyone who has turned a passion into an occupation realizes it's fraught with becoming overwhelming. And there's times where it has. I've talked about swimming so much. I've been involved in it. I need to step away from it. So for me, at the space I'm in right now, I will 2 or 3 times a week, I'll do a little bit of swimming at least. And then other times I take my knowledge now, I need to get out in nature. I need to disconnect, switch off, socialize, but even some of my own time in the hills. Like with swimming gives you your own time. You can't talk to people, all of those aspects. So it's been, sadly, so a lot of the events that I deliver are things that I'd want to do. And when I started out naively, I thought, I'll set these up and then I'll be able to do them. But unfortunately, I personally found so many barriers that I'm still having to deliver it myself and be more involved than I wanted to. And so that has limited my ability to be able to partake in it.
Yeah. Oh, I appreciate your honesty, Dan, and I can relate to what you're saying about sometimes you get so invested in something you end up overdoing it a little bit, and you recognize the need to just step back and do something else, even if it's just for a short time, like you mentioned, going to the hills, just disconnecting from the thing that is getting a bit too much in your own head or body or whatever.
Yeah.
So I can relate to that, including when it comes to swimming, because it's also my favorite topic.
Yeah.
I could talk about it all day, every day, but yeah, we need to look after ourselves as well, don't we? As well as other people.
We do. In order to get some of the outcomes that we wanted, I felt and realized and still believe that we had to do it full time. We're unique. I don't know of anyone else that does what we do full time. And that has its own unique battles, but it's so rewarding at the same time. And I watch, who have I seen lately in the media? I've seen health is a good one, education. I've seen GPs, we've seen nurses, we've seen educators who are passionate about what they do. They get that good feedback. They know they're helping people, but they're also in quite a stressful space to work, and it becomes quite torn in there. You're doing good, you want to do good, but there's also, I watched the pharmaceutical the other day on the news. I was blown away. He said 1,000 scripts a day, and we're answering phone calls. We've got people coming in with inquiries, and now we're making mistakes. And that, but we know we're helping people, so we don't want to stop. What do you do? So we know we're helping people. We're still trying to find our comfortable space, and it's been frustrating for us. We're still recovering from COVID times and rebuilding and reshaping what we do. We found and a classic example was government agencies we work with. COVID happened and then it stopped and they went, right, we're back to normal. And we're like, whoa, no, we've just survived. We're coming out and now we're finding a new normal. And then on top of that, in the classic cost of living, said already, the uncontrollables, insurance, electricity, all those sorts of things. We're managing those. But what I love about swimming, right, is actually we've got these bodies of water right next to us that we can actually access for low cost. And all we want to do is make sure that we can do that safely and effectively. And there's 2 things, if I may, Shona,
Go for it.
On your podcast. We've talked about Grant and Alder. Now, I started this in 2013. We implemented down here something called the Swim Advisory. So in 2013, there were a whole lot of swimmers going in the harbour, and I looked at it and went, right, they're all over the place. We've got more people going boating. Let's put an area in where swimmers know they can go swimming and where boaters know that swimmers are going to be. And there was what are the key aspects? And I said, well, quite often we'll see a jet ski do a high-speed run down the 5-knot buoy just outside of it. Quite often the swimmers will use buoys for navigation routes because it's effective. Buoys are like magnets to swimmers, right? But too often they're right there in the separation. If that jet skier went just inside or the swimmer went just outside, there's an opportunity for a safety issue. So we decided we needed buoys inside the buoys. Set them inside the 5-knot buoys so we've got a buffer. And then we decided here's all the other navigation, green, red, yellow are already in play. So we made ours orange. And then we decided we don't just need the swimmers to know about it, we need the boaters to know about it. So we put signage up at boat ramps. Now, we had a fantastically supportive harbour master down here who was encouraging, but also overwhelmed. And we did that in 2013. I know that Wanaka has swim area. Queenstown swimmers I was involved with when they've set theirs up and they've got their boys going. You guys have got your area in Wellington, and ours is kind of functional here. But my actual goal was to get the harbour masters to talk to each other and to get consistency. So Dan could go to Wellington, Shona could go to Christchurch and know that there was a swim area with similar buoys, similar messaging, and we could have consistency. I love what Grant's done. I did get invited to go to talk to the harbour masters meeting, but they didn't follow through with it. What we've found is the harbour masters work independently. So although I love your bylaw, the problem is I turn up there, I don't know your bylaw. Or you come down here, we haven't got a bylaw. And so what I'd love to do, one of our projects was, let's get all the harbour masters on the same page and just have maybe 5 things for open water swimmers and spaces in our key swim areas up and down the country. Now, for me, that was a simple project that in your mind you could achieve in 2 seasons. I started in 2013, and 2025 we're not there. Of course, we had the COVID hiccup, but that's just one of the projects that we put a lot of time and effort into. And there's been some outcomes, but I think way more resources and way short of where we should be at.
I agree. There should be more consistency, especially because open water swimming continues to grow, right, around the country.
Around the country. I saw our trends in New Zealand typically can be drawn from overseas. We're more removed from the outdoor environment than ever before. People are rediscovering it now. It's exciting. We've seen the trend in the Northern Hemisphere, and the trend that's happening here just matches trends around the world, 100%. And there's a couple of other tie-ins with that. We've got climate change, and so I'll just throw some stuff out for you. We've got our indoor swimming pools. We've got some outdoor swimming pools. The data up and down the country shows very clearly patronage at an indoor swimming pool declines markedly in December.
It's not surprising.
Right? Not surprising for us. But, and Christchurch is a classic, we have limited access to outdoor pools in summer. So we have lobbied here, we open up one outdoor pool because only one is open in Christchurch in the morning in summer, one. We spend our time and resources opening up the other, not as a business model because it doesn't work, but as a community model it works. But we have done that for the past decade. Guess when most drowning incidents are? December, January, and February. And in our mind, guess what sucks so much energy? Indoor swimming pools. So even from a water safety and a climate change perspective, you have this great opportunity to decrease energy usage in summer in outdoor pools. You have this opportunity where you can park up outdoor pools. Some of them in the winter you don't need them, but you can ramp up that safe, low energy use space in summer, and that people want to swim outdoors in summer. And a lot of them are low competency. We don't want them going to the open water first, but if I had all the resources in the world, we'd have a nationwide campaign to not let council boards close open water pools, because what happened to school pools is now happening to outdoor pools. And I loved that you guys in Wellington, I'm trying to remember the pool, you saved it, didn't you? There's an outdoor pool that was, they have earmarked money to keep it open. And I can look up the name, it's in the back of my mind, but I could name the Sheffield pool here, which they've saved in Christchurch, which is great. There's the Oxford area pool, which we had a councillor here the other day who heads the committee, and he had a lot of pressure to cover it. And we said, don't, because you need outdoor pools. Ashburton lost their Tinwood pool because they didn't have anyone campaigning. And up and down the country, we've got people looking at outdoor pools, not looking at trends, not looking at data, just looking at balance sheets, not understanding swimming and closing those pools. And it's going to be like school pools. Then we're going to either have epidemics of high power use at pools, people going to outdoor space that's not as safe, rivers and oceans. And then here's the other little thing, and I think this is going to tweak. Shona's going to have something to say here. As soon as I say these two words, water quality.
Yeah. Very important topic, not just for swimmers.
No, for everyone, right? But
Yeah.
swimmers are canaries in the mine.
Yeah.
We are too busy these days walking around. I talked about coming back 2011, trying to set this up. Where is it safe, including water quality, for swimmers to go? In the UK, there's a fantastic club to pub swim race. Now, there's a beautiful river here where I'd love to have a mile-long swim, finish at a pub, you get a hamburger, and how amazing. But we can't, because the river fails water quality all the time. Imagine if people had a business, and most of their business, they couldn't do it because it was polluted and unsafe. You can't go to the park anymore because the park's polluted and the soil's dirty. There'd be an uproar. We need more open water people going in the open water, and I get frustrated. I want to stop them going. I want to advise people of water quality and get people to make their own call, but we need people to know when, for example, Wellington councillors haven't done their job, water care haven't told you, and there's a sewage discharge, swimmers will let you know straight away if there's an issue. But for most of the population, they go around, they don't know about this. Now, we had an issue and we do in Christchurch, where we cancelled our race series because of the water quality grading, and the health officer said, put a public health warning on it. And it's happening in Kaiteri at the moment. And I know you guys have battled it. For us as a formal organisation, if we do an organised swim, when there's a consistent health warning for the water quality, we will be liable. So we cannot. So we cancelled our race series. There's no race series down here now. And the irony is, when we were doing a race series, we didn't swim when it had been raining or after rain. We did water tests when we ran our race series, and we were actually surprised the water quality tests were amazing each race when we followed that model. But the way that the water tests were run and modelled statistically and run over a 5-year average, there was no room for us to deliver for risk mitigation. It was just, don't do it. And we've got one body of water left in Christchurch where we can swim, and our local council's just spent millions doing it up, so it looks very pretty now. It's attractive to lots of people to go and swim there. And in a time when there's no model or protection in place for the water quality. So just like we know we need to keep stock away from water now, humans have a massive impact on water quality. So it's a small body of water down there. One of our current projects we've highlighted, if we keep going, we've prettied this up, everyone's going to go swimming there in the summer, and it's likely when they do the water testing that it's going to start testing poor. And so people understand, you can have 5 bad tests out of 365 days. When it becomes below 95% of good water quality tests, then it gets a permanent warning on it. Right. So it could be 5 days out of the whole year, but then you'll get a health warning on it. Then we're not able to operate. We're not able to offer a swim service, but you can just go and make your own judgment call on that water. And it's inconsistent up and down the country. we see water quality issues day in, day out, and we've been trying to get a more usable model for swimmers. That's been something we've been lobbying for as well. But it's a battle. But I love, the more people we get in open water swimming, the more people are aware of these issues.
And the more we talk about it, right? Yeah.
Exactly right.
A lot of people don't know what's going on underneath the surface. There's a growing movement in the UK. I think it's called Right to Swim. But yeah, more people swimming in areas that are potentially polluted to raise awareness of it.
Yep.
I'll link to it in the show notes. But yeah, and if there's anything you want me to link to for people to read more about it, then we can do that as well.
I love our online groups where, you know, and I see Wellington, you've got a really strong open water community. Wanaka, Queenstown, I think you're talking about the Outdoor Swim Society in the UK, really good movement, and they have a slightly different one where, you know, they have the right to roam. Their
Right
past,
to roam,
from a
that's
water perspective, there isn't anything, and so water's kind of privatized over there. We're privileged in that respect, but we have exactly some friends of mine who ran swimming over there, the Henley Swims, are now out of business because of water quality, and they can't deliver swimming anymore. And I know Christchurch doesn't have a leg of the national series because there was no way for them to effectively operate their swim series. You know, the third most recognisable city, I think, in New Zealand. We don't have a swim series.
Yeah.
And how do people go and partake of it? You know, for me, it's a real concern, but there's lots of conversations around that. What I'd say to listeners is, you know, we love to get on Facebook and in our swim groups and make a comment. The things we do, though, find your counsellors and send them an email. Make sure that they know that it's an important issue for you. We love to, you know, we vent on Facebook and it's job done. Counsellors aren't, you know, going. You've got to be
strategic.
Yeah, but you've got to be. And I went to community board meetings here to lobby for water quality. I went to 8 meetings, and this is, you know, you asked about our business model. Everyone there was getting paid, but not us. I said the same thing at 8 meetings, and then I got invited to a 9th meeting. And I went, look, we can't do a 9th meeting, sorry. But what was really interesting to me was how much the counsellors did not understand the issue. And so my advice, if you're passionate about water quality or anything to do with swimming, try not to be too emotive, because that just closes door. Do some research, and ask us or ask it, you know, the answers are out there, but really understand the issue, and then find out who your voice is, who your counsellors are, and contact them. And don't just do it once. Here's something I'm concerned about. Here are the issues. How can you help? Or how can I help you with this issue? What can I do for you, counsellor? And then follow up on it. And
that's a really good idea. And it's a very timely comment because we've got the local body elections coming up in Wellington. Yeah. We are almost out of time, but before we finish up, you mentioned Lynn Cox's book Swimming to Antarctica earlier, and we said we were going to talk about books.
Yeah.
The previous episode of this podcast, my friend Sinead and I were talking about our favourite swim books. Yes. We had a whole bunch of them. So I'll ask you the question now. Apart from Swimming to Antarctica, do you have other swim books that you regularly reread or would recommend for other people?
Regularly reread, I can't. Look, I think it's a personal thing, isn't it? And there's 2 parts to it. Lynn Cox's was the most influential to me from a swimmer, and I love telling a story. So there's 2 parts for us telling the story. That would be my recommendation there. And I think, to honestly answer, and I'm going to be quick with this, I can't spin the camera but we've got a bookshelf here. What I'm going to do is dive over here, and you can probably hear me. So I'm going over to the swim shelf, books on house, and I'm grabbing them off because I know there is. Here we go. He's back. Podcast where he disappears. We have our swim shelf there.
I recognise some of those. Yep, I've got that one.
Terry. Love Terry. Rest in peace, Terry. A movement. Now, swimming is swimming, but what we do, Fit and Able, total immersion, you put your personality on it. Terry is different from us in that he has kind of one style for swimmers, but he also, in his book, he puts his personal story on it, and it's a really good book for people starting out. And I love that it's a focus on working with the water, not fighting water, which is an important message that we put out. So I love that.
Yep. So that's Terry Lowland, Total Immersion, for those listening. Yep.
This is just horrific, but we talked about understanding the environment that we're in. This one here, plastic ocean, and where the can you see that there?
Yeah, I can see it. Yeah.
Plastics congregating.
The plastic ocean. Yeah.
Yeah, and for people, you read this, and early on for me, it was overwhelming. Don't be overwhelmed. My message is, what can you do in your backyard to make an impact on this? This is the global stuff, big picture, but we look after our own backyard. If everyone did that, we wouldn't have these big problems. So just, for us, when we go to an event, we don't just, or when we're out swimming, it's not just about taking home our trash. We will take home other trash that, sure, there will be people who don't care. We do care. So that plastic bottle top, that little bit of plastic makes a difference. One thing, so pick something up. If everyone did that, that's the message I took away from this.
Cool. Swim Smooth, the complete coaching system for swimmers and triathletes.
Yeah, Paul, he's been on a great journey, and now, if you want to talk about business models for swimming, talk to Paul. He has set up a great partnership and a great business, but Paul's different to Terry. Terry had one sort of style for teaching swimming. Paul recognizes that we are all unique. We've got different length arms and legs, and we move differently. It's about there is fundamentals that need to be there: a good body position, an effective kick, a good head position. But within that, we will have unique movement patterns. And it could be because of an injury trait, it just could be our physiological traits. Paul recognizes that and provides more flexibility in his program. There's more of a description, I think, in here, more useful for people as they go through the journey. But I think that's also a good read as well. Last one I grabbed with the book, number 4.
History of Open Water Marathon Swimming by Captain Tom Johnson. Oh, I haven't heard of that one.
Really, just the history. It's kind of like, I would just describe this. It's more about, the marathon swim in America. It's kind of like, how Americans play baseball and they go World Championship? Well, it's not the history. It's a history of American open water swimming. But for people who are interested in marathon swimming, it's I just loved the attention to detail in tides and how you approach your swimming. People asking, how long is it going to take to get across that swim? Well, we have no idea. You take care of your skills and attributes, but nature will take care of the rest. And this is a really good journey of one particular marathon swim and how they applied that understanding to bring people's success down and down, even to the point they've got a spreadsheet here. You plug in your average swim pace, and then it'll tell you what part of the tide to start on. And so if people are interested in marathon swimming, I think that's a really good place to start, because you understand this when people go, oh, you swam, what was your time? Oh, that's a great time. And that's where, coming back to books, I started getting people to write a book about their journey, because it's got nothing to do with your time. People can be out there in the 6-foot waves and the water temperature is 10 degrees colder than expected. And this book here really just gives you a good journey on one particular one. So some good books here, but the best book that I recommend is the one you write yourself about your own swimming.
Yeah.
And there's some unique stories out there. When you next go to your swim group or people you may try and just scrape a chapter out of someone, and you'll find, when did you start swimming? What's your most favorite fun? And they'll tell you a story. Maybe you weren't, and you'll be like, wow. Just about everyone's got some of those.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly why I started this podcast, because I would do my swim in Oriental Bay, and then we'd all be having coffee afterwards at Freiburg. And every single person has an interesting story about why they got started and things they've learned. Yeah. So completely agree. Thank you for sharing the books. I will write them up in the show notes so people can go off and find out more about them or buy them or whatever. Dan, I've really enjoyed talking to you today. I knew I would. I feel like I could talk to you all day.
I think we're going to have a coffee at some point, don't we?
Yes, we do. Yeah. Do you ever come up to Wellington?
We need to. We need to get travelling here. We're just busy doing our thing, but you can be sure if I get up there, I'll be coming out for a swim.
Yeah, well, you've got a standing invitation. It's been a pleasure. I know a lot of my Wellington swim friends have been on your real swim adventures and speak of them very highly. Yeah, so I hope to come along on one myself one day.
We'd love to have you, and I think Wellington has got a really strong, important swim community. I love how you include people. I love how you're positive on your online interactions. I recommend to people when they're traveling, it's really easy for Wellington if they're going up there. I can recommend groups to them, and I love what you're doing, just sharing that message, being encouraging, supportive, and I think we've got a synergy. It's health and wellness, it's that coffee afterwards, it's that connecting with nature.
That's right. Yeah, excellently put. And we don't have cold water in Wellington, we only have wet water.
Exactly.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Swim Chats. Please remember to follow or subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss an episode. And if you enjoyed it, you can leave a 5-star rating and review, which helps other people find it too. Enjoy the water, and we'll see you next time.